Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gray Area.
Good evening, everyone. I'll open in prayer. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me connect with others despite our differences. Let me not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way.
I'll go right into the Gray Area's introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective in my situation? Does it align with his? Introducing the Gray Area. The Gray Area is designed to challenge your thinking. As many times we don't realize it, but the way we're raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and experience all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. We're both mothers, wives, daughters, friends, ordinary women who love God. Yet our one goal, our one desire is to please him, integrate his way and his perspective into our lives. This is not always easy, especially when we've been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge others on their very belief system. Does it align with his? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, good and bad, but this thing called grace and love does not always allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations, discussions, and situations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversation and chime in. Perspective matters. So before we go in further, we just want to remind you guys that we really want you to take part in today's discussion. So at any time, if you have a question, comment, or something that you would like to add, just push *6. We'll see you in the queue, and we'll take it from there. Tashora, in your hands.
So yesterday, Shanae and I had this conversation, as we often do, and it kind of, escalated, and we started to get both. We were, on opposite ends of this, as sometimes we tend to be. But, as we were discussing topics for this week, Shanae wanted us to talk about infertility as women and how, some women struggle with it, and, it's a real situation that many women deal with. And, then we got into it, going to a place where she said, I think a lot of people aren't sensitive to women and how women feel, especially when they're going through something as sensitive as that. And, she was just saying how, she doesn't think it's anyone's right to ask how, if they were planning on having children or if they want children. And, I had a different opinion, and it went to different because I feel like, just because, and a lot of times I think many of us could be going through our own struggles, and somebody else could be coming from a good place and asking you about, whatever it is, maybe naive to your personal situation, and immediately it's taken in a way that it's coming from a bad place or it's offensive. So, so it spiraled us into this conversation, and I felt like we're losing something overall as people because we can no longer feel safe in coming to somebody in a loving way to discuss anything, or even, I just think overall as a society, we are so easily offended by every single thing that we're kind of walking on eggshells, even on these different movements that we have out, the women's movement, Me Too movement, and, all different things that are out there right now. I think just us as a society, we just are walking on eggshells. So, and then we have, it spiraled into other things. So in this conversation, our gray area question tonight is our culture too judgmental, or do we get offended too easily? So, Shanae, what do you think? Yeah.
I think that I certainly agree that our generation gets offended very easily. I feel like we're in a place in time where people cannot express themselves or have an opinion without it causing controversy. Like, we no longer respect that people think differently, people have different perspectives, and they may not agree with our perspective. I think what was interesting is that this whole day I was looking at my timeline, and everyone was talking about Aisha Curry's Red Table Talk interview with Jada Pinkett. And, even if you have not saw the interview or read about it, I'll just quickly, go into a little detail. She was just sharing, like, her story, her perspective of what it's like dating a very famous basketball player. And she was very vulnerable in the interview, and she talked a little bit about her insecurity as a wife because, as you can imagine, famous, traveling, and all of these women throw themselves at him. And there was a point in the interview where she said that, even though she's his wife, it's interesting that, men do not respond to her the same way. She was just saying that, it would be nice as a wife, as a woman, that, she would get some male attention. And, not to go into too much detail about her in the actual interview, but I thought it was interesting that so many people had such strong feelings about the interview when she was only sharing her perspective. Like, this is her perspective as a woman. She's a mother of 3, and how she feels in her relationship. And, people were making funny memes about it, and they were like, I can't believe she was so insecure because she's married to this famous person. And I don't, trust me, I believe that we all are entitled to our opinions. I think it was just a little troublesome that people were very judgmental on the fact that this is the way that she feels. I feel like now it's almost like we have to filter what we say because of the strong feelings about it. Tishra, what are your thoughts?
I guess with the I guess I have 2 different pieces. I think the gray area question, I would have to say yes to both. It's like a tricky question. I would have to say, yes to both. But specifically with Ayesha Curry, I think she just, oh my goodness, I don't think she can say anything. I think people are just offended by Ayesha Curry. I think people say things like she can't even really say anything. And again, that was a real feeling. She was coming from her own opinion. That was her. She was being vulnerable and speaking how she wanted to feel, and she could have helped several people who could have identified with how she was feeling. But now, because, and I'm just not even speaking about her specifically, but just people in general, the fact that we are vulnerable to each other, and we're supposed to be, because that's how we're going to be able to pray for one another and be there for one another. We got to be vulnerable to each other in order to be lifted up, to be reprieved, to be pulled out from. That's what we have to do. And now when you are vulnerable, people feel it's their right to tear you down. So now that person, or Ayesha Curry, or any of us that do that, now we're going to retreat. We're going to go back into the hole. We're not going to say anything, and we're going to stay silent about what we're going through because people are so judgmental about everything. Every little thing, they want to pick it apart, even if it's your opinion. This is your life. It has nothing to do with you. Yeah, with them. Right, that's what I meant. With them. It has nothing to do with them. And they feel it necessary to tear her down. I think that is wrong, but that's the society that we live in. I think everybody with social media is looking for a platform that they can, be recognized on. So I think that's just where we are. So we have to, I think, develop that balance of being able to have thick skin and know that people are going to have something to say that might not be nice. But we still have to be vulnerable because it's, again, still for us, I think. So that is kind of, I
think that it's challenging. I mean, without going too deep, I'm wondering how did we get to this place where we no longer can be individuals with different thoughts, feelings, like why how did we get to this place where we can't even respect that someone can feel differently about something? It's kind of bothersome. I mean, even without going into detail with the LGBTQT population, I almost feel like I've been watching in the news and, different celebrities, say different things, and it's like extra sensitive with people not necessarily agreeing with their views or their lifestyles or perspectives. And I just think that it's okay for us to have a difference of opinion or a difference of thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's the whole premise of the gray area, is respecting people's perspective, but it's now to the place where I think, like you said, people are now going to withdraw and not say anything.
Yeah, you're right. But, I think the reason why we have come to this place, I feel like we as a society, and it's so deep, I think it's because we are on this next level. People aren't, struggling. People aren't dying from diseases that can easily be treated now. People aren't working 14-hour days to put food on the table. It's a different. Our mindset is totally different. It's almost like we're like a spoiled society. So we have other things to focus on. I think we focus on different things now because we are just so. We don't have to focus on those hard things of the past. We've come a long way with a lot of things, and social media plays a huge part, I think, in all of this. But I think a lot of the systems that we create, just overall, in every area, whether it be school, at work, or, every area of our lives, on sports teams, everywhere, we're building, I think, this culture of, that promotes sensitivity. It promotes it. It's like you're okay to be, like even in school. Like if you go back to school and you think about like back in the days, if you had a competition, the best team wins. Nowadays, they don't even do that anymore. Everybody's a winner. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's a winner. So now we don't even have from childhood. You can't even build up. You can't. We don't even have. I don't know what's a good way to put it, but thick skin. Like we're deteriorating. Like, we're losing something. I don't even know how to we're losing something.
I mean, I will say I as a MSW or a social worker, part of my training was sensitivity. Everything that we were taught, it was to be extremely culturally sensitive. Even dealing with different groups, whether it's the LGBTQ group or whether it's someone that's struggling with alcoholism,
women
or disability, women or someone with a disability, you have to be very sensitive in how you address them, how you talk about them. It's always this conscious perspective that we're kind of trained as social workers, and I kind of relating it to society now, is that ultra sensitivity is what I see now on a day-to-day basis as well. I feel like I personally walk on eggshells every day. I'm always thinking about, if I say this, if this is offensive to someone, and I think that it kind of hinders me a little bit. I mean, going back to where we were like duking it out yesterday in our conversation, where you felt like, but there is a part of me that feels like some things are not people's business.
Yeah.
And we don't have to kind of explain it. And kind of what you were saying, and you guys can let me know what you think. We were talking about, I was saying that for my friend who struggled with fertility, she was saying that, after a while it was very annoying for people to just come up to her and her husband and say, hey, when are you having kids? And I was just saying to Shore that I think that it's important as individuals that we're mindful that some people are struggling with it. And she had very strong feelings of saying, well, if someone is asking out of love, does it really matter? And I said, yes, because I feel personally something like that is personal and it's not anyone's business. I think that that's a common question that we all ask. You see a couple, you don't see they have kids, hey, when are you going to have that baby? And I just think that we have to be so careful sometimes about what it is. So, going back to the question that we asked, are we, is our culturally, are we too judgmental or are we too sensitive? I think it kind of goes both ways. I think that there is a level of sensitivity and privacy that we need to extend to people, but then I also do feel like we are extremely judgmental the minute that someone does not agree with our opinions, our thoughts, or perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, with with the conversation that we were having, I just feel like, when I got married and when my husband and I got married, I think I had just turned, we were like 26, like we were planning, and it was like 26, 27, 28, 20, we waited a while. And in that time frame, about 3 years, and in that time frame, many people came to us asking us about if we were, like, what's up with kids? Like, you guys aren't doing it? I mean, my father asked. And my father's usually not even, he wouldn't even ask anything like that, but my uncle asked. The men in my family even, like, came to us and asked. But I didn't take it in offense, because I knew I wasn't offended by it in any way, because I know that they asked me out of love. Some people just don't want to have kids. And I tell you, I sat down with my father, and he was telling me that, Tashura, I know you might be in a place where they weren't even thinking. I think that thing was like the furthest thing from their mind that I could be having issues with it. But I think I could have made a decision. I wasn't having issues, thank God, but I could have made a decision to be offended at that point, or hear the men in my family out, or all the people that were asking, because I knew they were asking from a place of love. Just like I think I used the example of you yesterday when I was saying that, if my spirit is heavy and I said, I want to bless my brother or sister with, $50 or $100 or whatever. And I feel great. I feel led to do that. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that just because I don't know what they're going through. But they might have been, I don't know, they missed their rent, or they just lost their apartment, or, didn't have money to put food on their table, and they feel a funny way about it. And I go and give them the money, and they take offense to that. Does that negate my love or my feeling that I felt to give them or led to give them? So now it's like, oh, my gosh, I did something so wrong. I just feel like a lot of times, I think, yes, we might be walking in a place where we might not be able to receive it because of whatever we're going through, but I think it's very important that we are conscious. And again, that's why we have these conversations, that we are conscious in where that person is coming from with it. I don't think we walk around, people walk around. Nobody, I don't think anybody comes to you in that place of a bad place, like when you're going to have kids. I get it. Some people struggle. But I think it works both ways. And I hear you. It's nobody's business necessarily. But, if my grandfather or my uncle or my mom or somebody's coming to me, or even, you said sometimes it's strangers. You even said that yesterday. And, yeah, I don't think a random stranger will come up. It'd probably be like a coworker or something that felt close enough to say that to you. But I think a lot of times we get offended when somebody is not coming from a place of.
But you don't think that, now that I'm thinking about it and going in another direction, is that you don't think that we just don't respect sometimes people's privacy? And back to our introduction where it says many times the way that we're raised, like, I think culturally that this particular example that we're using, that's just something that we say, but, like, just challenging ourselves if is that even really necessary. Like,
I couldn't hear you so well. Can you say that again?
I said that you don't think that there's a level of privacy that we need to extend to other people. Meaning, in the introduction, we talk about the importance of, or we talk about how many times the way that we're raised, I think society, culture, these are just common things that people say, but I'm just really challenging myself to really think, like, is it really necessary? Like, do I really need to know?
I don't think don't think, you see, I guess it all depends on the way that you're looking at it, because now, I mean, we're just using that example, but I think even when we talk about like somebody coming to you and asking you if you're going to have kids, where they were coming from, just through explanation, is when they had children, it was the best experience ever. Like, you don't want to bypass that, because that is like a milestone. Just like them, I took it just to the level of them saying to sure, you know, you want to buy a house, you want to make sure that, you know, you're building on your investments. You want to, just like, I took it in that way, which was a way, and I get it, everybody is, you know, some people could take it in a different way, but I just really feel like many of us is just walking around just looking for something to be offended by. You know, I really feel that. I think people are, so now it's like you're so restricted, you know, and you can't even receive the love that somebody's giving you because you're in such a fragile place. And I just think we're just so sensitive to so many things. And I know we're just speaking about one part of our question right now, but I just don't want us to lose, just as people in general. I just feel like, you know, I would want, you know, nowadays people get offended by like hugging. You know, I just feel like that we need that. You know, I want somebody to come see about me, but now people are just so like nervous, you know, like, you know, the men can't even reach out to give a hug because guess what? That might be, you know, too touchy-feely or too close or too, like, it's just so, it's just such a, you know, it's just, and I get it. I know you know, it's a sensitive place, you know, and I know the struggles that people are going through, but I do feel that we should be mindful to separate some of those things to know where people are genuinely coming from, a place of concern. I don't want to lose that. I just feel it's just such a good thing. And I think even biblically it says, I know it says, many will be offended. Don't be one of them. I think it's in Proverbs. I didn't look it up, but don't be one of them. Many will be offended. Don't be one of them. So let's not be so easily offended, especially when people are coming from a place that's not negative.
So going back to the example that we gave with Aisha Curry, should she be offended by being so vulnerable and then having such a strong reaction to what she said? Because that's where we're getting to the second part of like the judgment part.
One more time for me.
I'm going to the second part of the question. Are we too judgmental? And I was bringing it back to the whole buzz today about her Aisha Curry's interview, and I was saying, do you think people are being too judgmental, or is she being sensitive?
No, you're saying, is Aisha Curry being too sensitive about her?
What I'm saying, is it judgmental for people to have strong reactions, or is it that the other side of people who agree with her are just being sensitive?
I think many people are, you know, I think people are judgmental. But you got to know that kind of going in. You know, I think that's the thing. So we don't have thick skin anymore. Everybody has this thin skin that we're working with, and we're going into these situations. So it's kind of hard to have any kind of defense mechanism against them because we're also thin-skinned. But I do feel like people are very, very, very judgmental. But then we have social media, which gives them a platform to be judgmental. You know what I mean? You think people are going to say those things in your face? No, they're not. They're not. So everybody's looking for a come up, so they're going to say the crazy off-the-wall thing so everybody can pay it attention. But you're going to have that as your, defense to know people are going to do that. The only point about it is that, you know, when you hear all those things, especially from, like, continuously, that's why they have, like, even cyberbullying, even with the kids, because it's just so constant the way it comes in. You know, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. It's.
If you guys have a comment, you can hit *6 if you have a comment about anything we're talking about. Once again, the question is our culture too sensitive, or is it just that we're judgmental? I mean, can you hear me? I know that my phone sounds kind of low tonight. I have to get that adjusted. But I totally feel like in this particular stance, I feel like in this particular stance, we are being a little bit judgmental. I think that we have to be in a place where people are entitled to feel how they feel. And that's okay. I mean, she's talking about, in this particular example, she's talking about her marriage or her personal experience. So I will say, as we're talking about it, I think social media just creates an extra layer to,
it does.
To it. I mean, for me personally, I don't post as much because I can't. I wonder sometimes if I post something, will it be offensive? Will people interpret it differently? So I actually refrain from posting as much because of this fear that things will be taken out of context, or I'll be judged, or people will make assumptions about me. So I definitely feel like in a lot of cases, it definitely interferes with me doing certain things because I feel like people are extremely judgmental.
I think when you use social media as, as your platform for communication and reaching all these people, I think you just have to know that you're putting yourself out there. So you are going to have, us as adults, kids, that's why we have to monitor our kids on social media, but us as adults need to know that if you're going to put yourself out there. So if you're putting yourself out there, that's up for everyone's scrutiny because that's what it is. That's just how it is. It's nothing. I wish we could change it, but we can't change it. That's just what it is. People are going to comment and say whatever they want to say. So that's something we can't do. I just think that when you put yourself out there, you're going to have to be resilient to whatever the feedback is. You're going to have to just be okay with it. That's just what it is. If you don't want to be scrutinized, then you can't put as much information, or you can't leave yourself open to get that if you can't handle it, let's just say. But I think it's so important that you're going to have thicker skin. You're going to have to be able to be resilient to whatever people say because people are opinionated, and social media gives them that ability to be that way. It's like they hide behind a curtain. So now you can get all of this stuff. So if you're putting yourself out there, then you can't be easily offended, or this is going to be detrimental to you, period.
Right.
Period.
So I think it comes with the level of confidence.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I don't feel like we should stop. Yeah, we can't stop saying we have to be vulnerable to each other. We do. We have to still say what we have to be vulnerable to each other and say what it is we need to say. I don't know if we need to be vulnerable on Facebook or Instagram necessarily. It depends on how thick your skin is. Because people might come off, but if you want to be vulnerable to your friend on your small setting, yeah, and I'm not saying that you can't be vulnerable on Facebook. You absolutely can, but I think you have to know what comes with it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Once again, before we wrap up, if you have a comment that you'd like to make on today's topic, please hit *6, and we'll see you in the queue.
Well, I think one of these days, Shanae, we should definitely talk about, I think, social media just in general, and that be like one of our topics, because I think it's so many, I struggled with it for a while too, and the layer, the extra layer that it adds to where we have just come, where we are right now. And I think there's definitely goods and bads to it, but I think that's just a good topic for us just to,
I
talk
agree.
about.
I think the scrutiny that social media adds is a reason why I don't probably use it in the capacity that I probably should. I just think it's more of a headache. But, I think it's an interesting conversation. I definitely could relate to a lot of what Aisha was saying in her interview, and I think it's unfortunate that some people were not open to, her experiences as a wife. And, it's a little bit unfortunate. But I will say that I admire her, because this isn't the first time we've talked about her on the show. I admire her that she doesn't allow this to stop her from having a voice. And it doesn't stop her from, sharing who she is, and kind of like what you talked about, she always continues to remain vulnerable, so that we can really see her for who she is. And I think that that's what God wants us to do. And as I'm thinking of, my closing points, I think that that's something, I think we should challenge ourselves to kind of do, is to continuously be who God created us to be, whether people accept it or not. It's not easy, but, like you said, people are always going to have something to say. And we just have to be able to handle it.
Yeah, I think she has this, a strong personality, but I like the fact that she's willing to, open up about certain things, whether or not, because she's not stopping. She's done this before, so it doesn't seem like she's going into the rabbit hole and hiding. So she's going to continue to be, that advocate for herself and for other women that might be feeling the same way as she is. So, I applaud her. I think what she spoke about was good, because some women might identify with that and see that it's not just them, that she's going through something and they are also there. So that's.
And I think her testimony has helped someone. And I think that's something that we have to remind ourselves, that even with the 15 people that may have something negative, maybe hearing what she said in her interview, I'm sure it's helped a wife or two. I could relate personally to it, and I could say that it helped me too, because it showed me that I'm not alone in kind of thinking some of the things that I think as well. So I think it's pretty interesting as we're talking about this. And, tonight's challenge is just to be mindful about, your perspective and being okay to share it even when it's unpopular. And I think we kind of talked about it, as Christians in our walk as well. It's not always popular, but just being true to who you are no matter what.
Yes. That is really good. And I would just I would just strongly urge, anyone that's listening this conversation to definitely continue the conversation, because I think we need to be it's like we're going against the grain, I think, with this one, because I think just our society and the makeup of it and how how we're creating all these systems of sensitivity, it's creating also an adverse effect where we are becoming so thin skin and not being able to withstand anything anymore. So I think it's a good conversation to have, just to keep in the forefront of our brain that we shouldn't be easily offended, because that leads to so many other things and so many other bad choices. And let's just try to be a little bit more it's hard. I know it's hard, but I think we should try to be more resilient to other people's opinion. And I know that's what social media is based on. We're living a life based on other people's opinion, but I think we gotta seriously. But I think we have to just be mindful about that, and.
But I just want to add one last thing. I think that when you are offended, the offense is usually something that you carry, some baggage, something maybe you struggled with, whatever it is. Many times the offense that you're feeling, I'm not saying all the time, but it is something for you to reflect. Like when you do get offended or you feel a kind of way, I think it should be a self-check, like, hey, is it just me? Because oftentimes it could be a trigger for something else that you maybe haven't dealt with before.
My sister, whose voice is not so well, she just wanted she sent me a little message. She wanted me to mention that sometimes that being offended is misunderstanding someone else's intention. But I think if we come into a situation where I don't always think it's that. I think sometimes we as people are in a place of we're dealing with something. So if somebody if it becomes exposed by some other person, knowingly, unknowingly, it flares up and we become offended. So I guess, yes, we can misunderstand someone's intentions, but I also think it's where we are, that will cause an offense as well. So I think that's my final comment, unless you have something else to say.
No, I thank you guys for listening. If you haven't had a chance, please download, what is it called? The podcast.
Oh, our podcast. Yes.
Yes.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. The link to our podcast is located there. You could also listen to today's episode and all past episodes on YouTube. Please email us at thegrayareaconversation@gmail.com with any topics or comments that you want to talk about for tonight. Even if you were offended, we want to hear from you. And we love you guys for listening. We thank you so much for your support. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.